Good evening. The hottest Canadian team on ice took a hard fall today. The Ottawa Senators, drowning in debt and unable to pay its players, filed for bankruptcy protection. And there are fears the fans in the nation's capital could know the pain felt several years ago by the fans in Quebec City and Winnipeg. Senators owner Rod Brydon says there's a chance the team could be on the move unless the fans step up and pay up. Eric Sorensen reports.
As lawyers walked out of court, Rod Brydon walked into a news conference, the clock now ticking on the future of pro hockey in Ottawa.
There is more than a chance that this team will not play in Ottawa.
The Senators, hugely successful on the ice, have filed for bankruptcy protection. Creditors have put up an emergency $14 million to keep the Sens on the ice for now. But the team's problems run much deeper than that. It owes millions to the NHL, to two banks, the CIBC and Fleet Boston, and to other major creditors totaling about $160 million. Coupled with the Corel Center, with separate debts of over $200 million, it is one expensive mess. So the for sale sign is going up. Brydon himself has until January 14th to put together a partnership to keep the team. If the creditors don't go for it, starting January 24th, other buyers can move in, which could see the Senators move out of Ottawa. Brydon is already into a sales pitch to creditors. You won't see a better offer than mine.
The reality will be substantially less favorable than the hopes of the lenders. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. There may be lots of wealthy folk just waiting to buy a hockey team and move it to God knows where.
The Houston NBA team is moving into a brand new arena next year.
This sports business analyst says, on the contrary, the Senators would be attractive to several potential bidders.
You're not getting an expansion franchise here. You're getting a contender. You're getting a team with one of the best records in the National Hockey League.
And Ottawa is a solid hockey market. That, however, carries little weight when a team is in the hands of the courts and at the mercy of its creditors.
It's a very, very difficult time for the business to be able to get investment in and to get the creditors satisfied. So it is a very precarious time.
The Senators' players, who were shortchanged $2 million when they weren't paid a week ago, are putting on a brave face.
In a perfect world, we wouldn't have it. But, I mean, it's the way it is. We've got to deal with it and make the best of the situation.
The local politician and deputy prime minister, who's been criticized for meddling in the Senators' affairs, is still in there pitching for them.
If you know somebody who might want to buy a hockey team, I'll be happy to give them a call.
Jokes aside, Ottawa, like many teams, has watched crowds shrink recently, so the owner issued this final ultimatum to fans: fill the seats or lose the team.
So I would have thought it's self-evident this team would stay here because it's the best place to be. But if the seats are empty, it's not the best place to be.
The NHL calls today's developments a constructive step, but towards what? Negotiations and deal-making over the days ahead could determine whether the Senators ultimately will play in Ottawa or, like the Quebec Nordiques and the Winnipeg Jets, skate south of the border. Eric Sorensen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, joining us now to talk about the Senators and the health of the NHL is the league's commissioner, Gary Bettman. He's in New York. Commissioner, let's get right to that point that Eric mentions. As you know, most Canadians are wondering tonight, is this the first signal that the Ottawa Senators will be heading south of the border? Can you give any assurances that the NHL won't let that happen?
We are committed to having 6 healthy, vibrant teams in Canada, and we're going to do everything possible to ensure that that's the reality. This is not the first time that we've dealt with a franchise in such a situation. We've had a number of these, including Pittsburgh fairly recently, and we've managed to work our way through it. This is the beginning of a process to deal with the problems the Senators have. We as a league have an economic system that needs to be fixed. It's something that we're committed to doing. I've repeatedly said that if we don't resolve our problems quickly, they will only get worse, and that some teams will struggle to get to the opportunity in 2004 to fix our economic system. But we're committed to doing it because the fans deserve it and the game deserves it.
Well, I appreciate that, but with respect, it sounds awfully similar to some of the things that were being said as both Winnipeg and Quebec City were in trouble.
That's not fair, and that's not true. Winnipeg and Quebec moved because there was no prospect of new arenas and nobody wanted to own the franchises there. Ottawa is a great market for us. The fans have been very supportive. That's one of the best buildings in North America, not just the NHL. And I believe that if we work hard at this, which we're committed to doing, we can work our way through this, and that's something we're all out going to try and do.
Well, if it is that good, do you have a sense that there are prospective buyers who will keep that team in the nation's capital?
I am hopeful, I am optimistic, and I'm going to look everywhere and try to sell as hard as we can. If Rod Brydon can put together the offer, that'll be great, but we're going to work hard because we believe in the Senators in Ottawa.
What's the problem here? Mr. Brydon today suggesting that the fans have got to step up and pay up. I mean, Ottawa's got a pretty good attendance record. It's about 16th in the league. It's running at about 88% capacity, over 16,000 averaging.
Well,
those are pretty good numbers.
And actually, the lead-in talked about attendance problems, which isn't true. Last year was our 5th year in a row with an attendance record league-wide, and every year you have some teams up and some that are down. Off of what our record-high attendance was as a league, we're off about 200 people a game, and if you take from that the Buffalo situation, we're off 25 people a game. Attendance throughout the league, notwithstanding a soft economy, is doing okay. That's not the concern. The overall economic system, the ability to attract investors, the ability to let fans know that teams can be competitive no matter what the market size is and whether or not Canadian currency is an issue. That's what it's all about, and that's why we have to fix our economic system.
Last point, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall when the Buffalo situation developed, you were able to give a guarantee that the team would be in that city for at least a period of time before anything might change. What about the Ottawa story?
Well, what I said in Buffalo is we're working hard to sell the franchise, but nobody should worry about the team getting through the season. And I believe what we did today, or what the club did today in Ottawa with the CCAA filing, is arrange for the financing first on an interim basis so that we can go through this process and the fans don't have to worry about the team completing the season, and so the players shouldn't have to worry about getting paid.
Bottom line, you're confident that there could be a way to keep that team in Ottawa?
Well, I'm a definite believer in all of our Canadian markets. I'm a believer in the game in Canada because Canada is the heart and soul of our game, and our game is the heart and soul of Canada. And I think it would be terribly sad and terribly wrong if we couldn't fix this.
All right. Commissioner Bettman, we appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Good evening. Welcome to Venture. I'm Diane Buckner. All week, we've been hearing about the baffling predicament of the Ottawa Senators, how the most successful team in the NHL can't make money in the capital of a hockey nation. Professional sports franchises do have to depend on their local business community for support. But as Havard Gould reports, maybe the Senators' problem is that they got a little too close to theirs.
Into the corner. Here's a chance for Ottawa now. Walking right out in front. He scores!
Forget for a moment they play Canada's game.
Here's a chance now. Brad Smith scores!
Consider the idea that the Ottawa Senators are, in essence, a high-tech company on skates.
To the applicants representing the city of Ottawa.
Since the beginning, they've acted like one. In the 90s, as a startup rolling up massive debt. Lots of excitement.
This is the biggest thing that has ever happened to the city of Ottawa, other than being named the capital in 1857.
But revenue never matched expectations. Sound familiar?
It sounds like a high-tech company.
Well, I guess it might have been run on that basis.
There's more.
Devereaux shot off the goalpost.
Like many high-tech companies, they have a great product, plenty of talent. The boss is even a tech veteran.
The next decade for this franchise will be hugely successful.
The Senators are based in Canada, Silicon Valley North. And look at the name on top of their building. A high-tech company that after years of excess ended up in deep difficulties. So if the Senators are not themselves a high-tech company, they're certainly joined to high-tech at the hip. And on Thursday, when they filed for bankruptcy protection, their bubble finally burst.
We need to decide whether or not we are going to have a team in this city and whether we're prepared to pay for it.
The surprising thing is not that the Senators got into trouble, but that they avoided it for so long. All around here, the high-tech meltdown has raged. Companies have laid off tens of thousands of workers, devastating the local economy. Yet, for years, somehow, the Senators still managed to find a way to play on.
Here's Spezza being hooked and a penalty coming here.
Credit Rod Brydon. He campaigned for tax breaks, refinancing any deal available. And every possibility earned hope, allowing the team to coast along a little longer, even as the tech wreck continued all around him. But in Toronto, this corporate finance lawyer says the Senators were doomed long ago because, like countless high-tech startups from the 90s, they dreamed too big and borrowed too much.
I thought it was a mistake when they gave them the franchise in the early 90s, just purely on market size.
The last time an NHL team went into bankruptcy protection, it was the Pittsburgh Penguins, rescued by Mario Lemieux. Citron was behind the scenes, acting for the players. He believes the Senators were lucky to make it into this decade.
It was only by happenstance, I think, and their good fortune through the technology boom that they've been able to make it this far.
Tech saved them.
I think it did.
How? At the peak of the boom, money really didn't matter much in the high-tech business. Companies were a lot more likely to pay for tickets, boxes, advertising, everything. Cash wasn't king, debt ruled. And even though the Senators' bills were piling up, in that era, it just didn't seem to matter.
They were able to survive and service that debt for a number of years in the late 90s because of the tech boom.
But sadly for the Senators, the mania is over, and no one expects it to return ever.
At the height of the high-tech boom, nobody cared about how much they were spending.
Right.
And now?
Every dollar counts.
Alan Kearns used to operate at the very center of the frenzy.
What would you say are your top 3 technical skills?
How long have you been at Nortel?
A headhunter in a sector frantically searching for people to fill the insatiable demand for tech workers in Silicon Valley North. These days, he's shifted focus.
Alan Kearns, job joy.
Coaching people who still have jobs and detecting a whole new attitude, one that can't help the Senators.
It's cool to spend money wisely, I think, is the themes that I've seen sort of working with a number of clients in a number of different areas.
That's the corporate culture. People laid off in the meltdown aren't likely to go back to their high-spending ways either. Thousands of lucky ones have been scooped up by the federal government. Lots of security, less money.
The difference is that we've seen situations that had clients that were making maybe $100,000 to $150,000 a year or somewhere in that range, and now they're making $80,000 or $90,000 or $70,000. And as a result of that, their discretionary income, the money that they would do on different things, has changed significantly.
So, can hockey in Ottawa survive the high-tech cycle?
It's tough to be dispassionate about this as Canadians. But given the way the tech sector, the business community is in Ottawa, would you put a franchise in Ottawa today, the way things are?
Never.
But the Senators may yet get something most high-tech entrepreneurs can only dream about. A chance to start over without debt.
Now more than ever, support of the community will determine the future of the franchise.
But if they stay in Canada, they will have to change their ways. Stop counting on hype and hope. Act like any other business and sell the product. For Venture, I'm Howard Gould.